The HOA said my pond was too disruptive, so I bought the water tower that feeds their sprinklers and turned it into a trout sanctuary. They demanded that officers arrest me for trespassing on what they claimed was HOA property. But when the cops examined everyone's paperwork, the most insane reversal happened. Who was really trespassing? Who actually owned the lake? The truth flipped this entire situation upside down. And what followed made national headlines. Real footage, real drama. Comment where you're watching from. This gets absolutely wild. Now let's rewind, because before my pond became the bass power-mated middle finger to HOA tyranny, it was just my happy place, me, my old kayak, and Dingo the basset hound, who's built like a loaf of bread with judgmental eyes. The pond sits dead center on the ranch my granddad left me. He dug it in 1963 with nothing but a rented backhoe and spite for city people. Said, if the world ever goes to hell, at least I'll have catfish and coffee. Well, Grandpa, we didn't get the apocalypse. We got something worse. We got Charlene Duke. Shirley introduced herself by taping a 6-page notice to my gate titled, Compliance Alert. Unauthorized water body. The woman talks like a prosecutor and walks like her knees owe her money. She declared she was the interim president of the Cypress Creek Harmony Association, which, fun fact, didn't even exist until she printed the bylaws at Office Depot the night before. Her platform? Restoring community energy. Her weapon? A laser printer and 0 hobbies. My first violation came the next day. $300, 0 cents for excessive aquatic disturbance. I had no idea what that meant until I read the fine print. Apparently, my fish were splashing outside the acceptable ripple range. Charlene actually wrote, fish must not display aggressive swimming patterns. I didn't realize we were regulating trout emotions now. Next was $500, 0 cents for unauthorized fishing visuals. I asked what that meant. She said, your rods look hostile to the peaceful flow of the community. Ma'am, they're graphite, not nunchucks. Week 2, she hit me with $750, 0 cents for noise pollution after dusk. Now, I fish at dawn, sun's barely up, the loudest thing out there is Dingo sighing when I miss a cast. She said she had video evidence of lure plops disrupting serenity time. I asked who was filming. She said, we have eyes everywhere. Lady, what is this? Watergate, but make it aquatic? Week 3 got spicy. $1,000, 0 cents fine for psychological harassment of aquatic life. That's a direct quote. She said my catch-and-release practices were traumatizing the ecosystem. I showed her my YouTube video where I hold up a bass, pet it, thank it, and release it with spa-level care. My subscribers call it Fish and Feelings Fridays. One viewer crocheted me a trout. Another sent Dingo Doggle. That fish looked more relaxed than I do in a hammock. But Charlene wasn't done. She came by with her nephew Ronnie, who's 22, wears a Bluetooth earpiece to feel important, and once tried to fine a squirrel for looking suspicious. They stood at my gate like mall cops with a vendetta. Charlene said, this pond violates the spiritual texture of the neighborhood. I asked if spiritual texture was on the zoning map. She did not laugh. Then came the nuclear fine, $1,500, 0 cents for motorized water aggression. I use a kayak, no motor, no battery, just me? Green K, I swear to God. So I did what any emotionally stable Texan with a YouTube channel would do. I made a video reading every fine out loud, holding up the fish in question like they were criminal suspects. The clip went viral too. Then it escalated, because this wasn't about fish. This was about land, control, legacy. And in the next certified letter, Charlene didn't just fine me, she tried to claw as tranquility starts with control. I thought that was the dumbest thing I'd ever read, until she threatened to enforce it. With drones, stick around, because when HOA surveillance meets Texas pond law and a duck named Waddles gets involved, you better believe someone's about to lose their lawn privileges. Like, comment, and tell me, what's the wildest HOA thing you ever witnessed? You ever seen someone declare war using a pie chart? Charlene did, and it had fish icons. Charlene called it an emergency HOA council meeting. But it was really 6 people sweating under a borrowed gazebo, holding paper fans and looking like they'd been tricked into jury duty. She stood at the front with a foldable easel, a stack of laminated charts, and a laser pointer that kept blinding her nephew, Ronnie. The headline? Reimagining Aquatic Resources, a Vision for Community Stillness. One chart featured a pie graph labeled Pond Usage Equity, with 99% labeled Travis, the other 1% Potential Future Float Therapy. She pointed the laser right at me and said, "This is no longer a private matter. This water body must serve the collective." I stood up with a manila folder thick enough to choke a goose and laid it out. The original deed from 1964, the spring rights documented with the county, and the tax assessments proving it's been privately maintained for nearly 60 years. I even highlighted the words non-shared aquatic resource in bright orange. Charlene took one look and said, "This document reflects outdated philosophies. Lady, it's not a horoscope, it's a binding contract." Then Ronnie spoke up, adjusting his backwards visor and AirPods like he was giving a TED Talk at a car wash. He said, "We're implementing pond enforcement measures immediately." That's when I heard it, a mechanical buzzing over my shoulder. A drone, a DJI model with a sticker on it that said Charlene's Eye in the sky. The thing swooped low, scanned my tackle box, then projected a voice recording. "You are in violation of rippling after designated hours." I looked around like, is anyone else seeing this HOA-sponsored sci-fi meltdown? By the third flyby, Dingo had had enough. He jumped up, ears back, and launched himself off the dock like a furry torpedo. He missed the drone by 2 inches but nailed the HO kayak floating nearby, flipping it like a pancake. Ronnie screamed like someone canceled his streaming subscription and ran down the shore yelling, "That dog is a domestic threat!" I reminded him he'd listed Dingo as uninvited fauna in the violation paperwork. "You can't call him both a pet and a predator, Ronnie." Things escalated fast. I received a citation via drone. Literally dropped on my lap mid-cast, $250.00 for excessive line whipping. Apparently the sight of my fishing rod motion was causing emotional distress to nearby homeowners. Charlene later claimed her neighbor's succulents were wilting in protest. I don't know what's more absurd, that statement or the fact that someone clapped when she said it. But it was clear this was no longer about fines or fish. It was about dominance. And Charlene had just made the mistake of turning this into an airspace problem. Take around because when Travis invokes federal drone law, Charlene gets grounded and a duck named Waddles makes her HOA debut in the most unexpected way. Like, comment where you're watching from, and drop your worst HOA moment below. You might just see it in the next video. Ronnie's drone got taken down by a duck. A mad duck. Her name is Waddles. The drone wars began at 6:42 a.m. on a Wednesday, which is when Ronnie launched his second DJI surveillance special over my pond, this time with a mounted GoPro and a bumper sticker that read, "Property is a shared illusion." I was mid-cast, enjoying the sunrise and some peace, when I heard the familiar buzz. Dingo gave it the side-eye. I reached for my phone to live stream. And that's when Waddles, the angriest Muscovy duck this side of the Mississippi, went airborne, like she had a vendetta. Waddles took that drone out like it owed her child support. One wing slap, one beak jab, and down it spun, into the lily pads like a defeated villain in a soap opera. I turned the camera just in time to catch Ronnie screaming, "That duck committed aerial battery!" And I swear, somewhere in the distance, Charlene's jaw hit the floor with a sound only HOA presidents can hear. The live stream chat exploded. Thousands of viewers cheering for Waddles like she was Feathered Rambo. Someone sent a $100.00 super chat that just said, "Justice by B." 3 hours later, Charlene rolled up with her laminated binder and a fire in her eyes. She marched to the edge of my property, pointed a bejeweled finger at the pond, and declared, "This is an act of coordinated aquatic defiance." Ma'am, it was a duck defending her home. Charlene called the sheriff to report illegal aquatic hoarding. When Sheriff Dale arrived, wearing a fishing vest, mind you, he took one look at the scene and laughed so hard he had to sit on my tackle box. Dale wheezed out, "She's saying you're hoarding." What exactly? Charlene huffed like a malfunctioning steam engine. He's collecting fish and refusing to share the community's natural assets. Dale wiped a tear and said, Charlene, last time I checked, bass don't have union cards. She tried to hand him a map drawn in colored pencil. He held it like it was radioactive. Meanwhile, my viewers were screen recording every moment, flooding the comment section with phrases like, HOA Karen vs. Sheriff Chad, and release the duct tapes. But Charlene wasn't done. Oh no. She left with a threat. Not a fine, not a letter, a full-on declaration. If you will not yield the water peacefully, we will enforce eviction by other means. And she walked off like a general retreating to plan the next assault, binder flapping in the wind, pearls rattling with rage. I should have been worried. Instead, I laughed until I pulled a muscle. And just when you think it can't get any more ridiculous, oh, it does. You're going to want to see what happens next. Nothing screams legal overreach like a man in a wetsuit yelling, "Surrender the pond!" Saturday morning, I was sipping black coffee and mentally preparing for peace when I heard the unmistakable hum of chaos. At first, I thought someone was hosting a water sports birthday party, until I saw Ronnie, wearing neon goggles and a wetsuit 2 sizes too tight, leading a convoy of jet skis across my pond like he was reenacting the D-Day of HOA invasions. Behind him, 4 HOA members, all over 60 and gripping tiki torches like confused pirates, formed a wobbly procession toward my dock. I blinked twice, checked my coffee for bourbon, and realized this wasn't a dream. It was Charlene's community cleansing ceremony. Ronnie pulled up to the dock, cut the engine, and shouted, "We're here to reclaim the spiritual flow of this water." Ma'am, it's a farm pond, not the Nile. I didn't respond with violence. I responded with culture. I cranked up bagpipe music over the loudspeaker so loud it startled a heron into early retirement, then dumped 3 pounds of biodegradable glitter into the pond like I was baptizing it in fabulous revenge. The water shimmered like a disco ball from 1976, and Ronnie started spinning in circles, yelling, "There's sparkles in my mouth!" One of the jet skis ran aground on a floating log, which Charlene later claimed was sabotage. As if that wasn't enough, she marched over that afternoon in a sun hat the size of a trampoline, holding what looked like a blueprint but was actually a child's drawing of the neighborhood. She said, "This is an updated zoning overlay map." I said, "Ma'am, this has smiley faces and clouds on it." She claimed the pond was now partially overlapping communal trust boundaries. I asked what that meant in English. She replied, "It means you are no longer the primary steward of this liquid terrain." That's when I knew she'd lost it completely. The best part? She filed it with the county zoning board. I got a copy in the mail, full of red lines that looked like someone let a toddler loose with a crayon and an overactive imagination. The official seal at the bottom? A smiley face sticker with the words "Verified by HOA Internal Review." My lawyer nearly choked from laughing. My viewers, on the other hand, were already making merch that said, "Liquid terrain steward since '64. Didn't plan to escalate until I saw Charlene had submitted a formal complaint about excessive use of celebratory glitter. So I did what any rational man would do when his pond becomes a geopolitical flashpoint. I went digging through county archives, not out of spite, but to finally settle this once and for all. Somewhere, buried under years of dust and badly stapled permits, was the truth. A truth I was about to weaponize like a freedom librarian with a filing cabinet full of justice. It should have ended there, but, trust me, it didn't. What happens next turns petty into legendary. Turns out Charlene signed her own defeat. With a pink glitter pen, the county archive building smelled like paper cuts and forgotten grudges. I was 6 hours deep into ancient property records running on beef jerky and stubbornness when I found it. Wedged between a tax lien and someone's complaint about goat noise. A 1997 land sale agreement. Charlene Duke, seller. Her late mother's 3-acre patch just downhill from my pond. At the bottom of the contract, in loopy, dramatic cursive, was her signature. In glittery pink ink, no less. I guess even back then she was weaponizing office supplies. And right above it, plain as day, no claim to existing or future adjacent water bodies above or below ground. I nearly laughed loud enough to echo through the microfiche. But wait, it got better. Attached to the file was an old pressure rights clause, handwritten in blue ink. The Morrison family shall retain full management of the local water system installed for agricultural support. That would be the same pressure system feeding the HOA's fancy sprinklers, meaning I didn't just own the pond, I owned the pipeline. Every HOA lawn in that subdivision was getting hydrated because Grandpa wired this place like it was prepping for a drought-fueled apocalypse. The man was a farmer, but his side hustle was legal time bombs. I drove straight home, printed a cease and desist letter on waterproof paper, because poetic petty justice deserves permanence, and hand-delivered it to Charlene. She was in her yard, fluffing a Live Laugh Lawn sign when I approached. I handed her the letter like a waiter delivering the check after a very awkward dinner. She squinted, read it out loud, and gasped so hard she nearly inhaled her pearl necklace. "You can't cut off our hydration access. That's a violation of neighborhood peace." I smiled and said, "Ma'am, read Clause 7. I'm the water fairy now." By 5 p.m., the sprinklers stopped. HOA lawns that had once glowed like golf courses began to crisp like overcooked bacon. Ronnie was seen spraying his mom's petunias with a garden mister while muttering about infrastructure sabotage. Charlene sent out a hydration crisis newsletter blaming me, the glitter, and what she called psychological moisture hoarding. Meanwhile, I did a live stream explaining the legal clause, showing the original deed, and walking through the shutoff valve like it was a Home Depot tutorial. Over 3.5 million views in 36 hours. Someone even mailed me a t-shirt that said, "Deed it and weep." But Charlene wasn't about to accept defeat quietly. She called an emergency HOA meeting. Not just any meeting, a full-blown coup. Word was she was about to change bylaws, purge dissenters, and declare HOA martial law. And me? I called a plumber and scheduled a very public, very live-streamed pressure adjustment event titled Sprinkle This. You'd think that was the climax, right? Yeah, not even close. Wait till you see what's coming. Charlene declared martial law over lawn care. They came at noon. High sun, high drama. 40 HOA residents in wide-brimmed hats, armed with protest signs that read things like "Hydrate, don't hate" and "Green lawns, pure souls." They marched like a suburban militia of turf fanatics, chanting, "We deserve the spray," and demanding hydration equality. Charlene led the charge like a general in Capri's, shrieking, "He's holding your sprinklers hostage!" Ronnie followed, holding a megaphone he didn't know how to turn on. Honestly, it looked like a bake sale had joined a civil war. They reached my gate, ready to storm it, but I did the unthinkable. I opened it, calm as a Sunday nap. I welcomed them in like confused trick-or-treaters and offered lemonade with biodegradable straws. Dingo brought out the tray himself. Well, he trotted beside me with his tail doing Morse code. I told everyone to grab a seat, passed around cups, then pointed to the water tower in the distance, like I was revealing a plot twist. "Then," I said, "feeds every sprinkler in your neighborhood." People nodded. "And this," I held up the clause from 1997, "says my family owns the whole system, top to bottom, legally." A silence thicker than Ronnie's ego fell over the crowd. One guy spit lemonade like he'd just realized he'd been billed for air. A woman with a Turf Life tote bag gasped and whispered, "We've been paying her for water he owns?" And just like that, the chants shifted. "Free the pond. Down with Charlene. Where's my refund?" Charlene tried to wave her lemonaded bylaws like a white flag, but they turned on her like seagulls spotting dropped French fries. "You promised us unlimited irrigation," one man bellowed. "You lied about the liquid." Charlene attempted damage control. She grabbed the megaphone from Ronnie and shouted, "Don't be manipulated by lemonade and legalese." But it was too late. Someone had already live-streamed my clause reading, and within minutes it hit 800,000 views. HOA members were DMing me asking if they could plant native grasses and get out of fines. The spell was broken. Charlene's tight grip on turf loyalty crumpled like a stale biscuit in sweet tea. Her irrigation purists had defected, and they were angry, sunburned, and ready for war. But Charlene still had one card left to play. One final lawsuit. Rumor was she'd filed something sealed and nasty, a last-ditch effort to seize the pond using some obscure historical claim. I didn't panic. I went back to Grandpa's old shed, the one with the padlocked drawer he told me to open only if the snakes start wearing pearls. What I found inside... Let's just say Charlene's plan was about to backfire harder than Ronnie's jet ski. You'd think that was the climax, right? Yeah, not even close. Wait till you see what's coming. Grandpa used to say, if the world won't buy your truth, mint your own damn proof. Grandpa's old tackle box had seen more bass than a state fair deep fryer, but tucked beneath the dusty lures and a half-eaten jerky stick from 2008 was a sealed, waterproof tube labeled in Sharpie, "Open if Charlene goes full crazy." I unscrewed it slowly, half expecting a glitter bomb. Instead, out slid a flash drive, a stack of Polaroids, and a note that read, "Told you that pond was going to start a war." There's nothing like posthumous "I told you so" energy to get your blood pumping. The audio file was gold. Charlene, clear as day, back in 1999. "I can get you 50 grand under the table if you sign that water over. I'll even throw in a membership to the clubhouse." Grandpa, ever the legend, responded with, "Lady, I wouldn't sell you pond water if you were on fire and floating in it." And the photos? Glorious. Charlene and a younger Ronnie, complete with frosted tips, caught on camera siphoning pond water into HOA tanks during a level 3 drought. One photo even had Charlene holding a hose with a cigarette in her mouth and a bumper sticker behind her that read, "Ask me about my ethics." I brought the whole kit to the county hearing. Charlene showed up in a beige pantsuit with shoulder pads sharp enough to slice ham and a binder so thick you'd think she was defending herself at The Hague. She opened with, "Your Honor, this is a simple case of boundary confusion and misinformed land nostalgia." I plugged in the flash drive, played the bribe tape, dropped the Polaroids on the table like a Vegas dealer out for blood. The hearing officer blinked 3 times, then said, "Is that a siphon hose in a margarita?" Charlene turned paler than unbuttered toast. Things unraveled faster than Ronnie on a hoverboard. The ethics committee flagged her immediately. The tax office launched an investigation into unreported water use, and just like that, the HOA board voted to dissolve. Officially, permanently. The final image? Charlene being escorted out of the building, still shouting, "You'll regret this, my niece is a paralegal." One of the officers gently reminded her, "Ma'am, being a paralegal doesn't mean she can file appeals on YouTube." Ronnie trailed behind, carrying the empty binder like a rejected contestant from The Apprentice, HOA edition. By sunset, it was over. The bylaws, the fines, the fake maps, all gone. And yet, the story wasn't done. Not until I delivered one final twist. Grandpa always said, a little revenge, when cooked right, tastes better than victory, and I had just the recipe. You'd think that was the climax, right? Yeah, not even close. Wait till you see what's coming. They tried to drain my pond. I bought the water tower and lit it up like Times Square. I always figured Grandpa was exaggerating when he said the family's old land deal gave us hydraulic sovereignty. Turns out he wasn't just chewing tobacco. He was chewing through loopholes. Using that dusty clause from 1964, I submitted a formal bid to acquire the local municipal water tower, the same one that fed the HOA's pipes, showers, and daily sprinkler tantrums. 3 weeks, 1 county vote, and 2 lemon bars for the clerk later. It was mine. I renamed it McCall's Mist, installed fish-shaped floodlights, and at night, animated trout now swam across the tank like it was a Pixar premiere for angry plumbers. But the pièce de résistance was what I did to the old HOA clubhouse. Turns out that when an HOA is dissolved for fraud, its assets get auctioned. So, I bought it for $42.00 and a handwritten IOU. Turned the whole thing into a bait cafe and fishing museum. Dingo got his own wing, complete with photos of him mid-leap, dripping wet, drone wreckage at his paws. We called it the retriever of justice exhibit. Kids came from counties over just to pet the legend himself. Someone even brought him a sash that said, "Honorary Mayor." He wore it like royalty and accepted bribes exclusively in smoked jerky. Meanwhile, Ronnie moved to Florida. Apparently got into pyramid schemes and airbrushed tank tops. Charlene vanished for a few months, but like a clogged pipe, she came back when you least wanted her. Rebranded herself as a lawn wellness coach on TikTok. First video had 40,000 views, until the sprinkler she demoed shot water into a power outlet. Her account got flagged for aggressive hose handling and was banned in all 50 states and 1 U.S. territory. Comment section was full of people asking if she was the glitter pond lady. I didn't respond. I just sipped tea next to Dingo and watched my water tower cycle through koi animations and public records notices. And here's the thing, this whole mess wasn't about ponds or bylaws, it was about power. About someone who thought paperwork and puffed-up nonsense could beat legacy, land, and one stubborn man with a duck, a dog, and a USB full of truth. Grandpa always said, if they try to flood you with crazy, raise the tower, son. Let 'em know you came prepared. So I did, and I made sure it sparkled. This whole mess, every jet ski, every laminated lie, every sparkly fine wasn't just about lawn drama or HOA tyranny. It was about protecting something real, something earned. It was about legacy, about knowing your land, knowing your people, and knowing when to turn the other cheek and when to turn off the sprinkler system. They came at me with fake maps and fake authority. I fought back with receipts, ducks, and a dog who can smell a scam from half a mile away. And in the end, we didn't just stop the HOA, we rewrote the rulebook. We turned the clubhouse into a cafe. We made a fish light show out of a lawsuit. We gave folks a reason to laugh and to document everything, because truth with proof, that's unstoppable. So if you're out there right now dealing with your own Charlene, just remember, you don't need to scream to win. You need to out-petty them. Out-petty them. And when in doubt, let the dog lead. If this story made you laugh, made you feel something, or just made you yell, "Oh no, she didn't," at your phone, drop a comment below, share your own HOA horror story, or tell me where you're watching from. I read them all. Like this video if you believe land and legacy matter. Subscribe if you want more stories where the underdog wins with humor, heart, and a good old-fashioned glitter takedown.